Hello peoples, I'm going to show you some animation tools I made for Gimp. Now Gimp itself I don't think it's made well for animation. So in Gimp you have to make new layers, and every layer has a piece of your animation. So for example, here I have this fire animation, and you'd have to make a new layer by going to right clicking your mouse and then going to new layer plus and then giving everything a name, and you have to do this every time for every new frame, and that's kind of lame. So if I were to do this normally, I would say new layer A1 A1 and then keep doing it for everything and then draw my animation as it goes. So that's kind of a tedious thing to do. So I've made some scripts that you can use to make your life much easier when making animations on Gimp. So to install scripts onto Gimp, there will be a download in the description where you can download the scripts that I made. And when you download the scripts, you'll have to copy those scripts and paste them into the Gimp folder where the scripts are contained. So this is the Gimp animation package folder that you'll get, and there will be these files inside of it. So what you want to do is you want to copy and paste these script files, copy here, and go find where your Gimp directory is. So mine is in this PC, it's in my C drive in program files, Gimp 2, share, Gimp 2.0, and scripts. And as you can see here, these are all the scripts that you can, or it's not all of them, but it's the ones that are in the visible ones. And what you do is you just paste them in here. They'll ask you for administrator access, you say continue, and here are the scripts. But these aren't actually loaded into Gimp yet, so you can't use them yet. So what you need to do is you need to go to Gimp and go to filters, script foo, refresh scripts. Now as you can see here, my scripts aren't here right now, but if I refresh the scripts, now I can use them. So we're going to talk about what scripts I made and what they do. So we'll start with the first one called custom duplication. So if we go to Gimp, and what this does is it basically takes any layer group that you have. Suppose you wanted to make, like, this is fire, right? This is a blue fire. What if I wanted to make a green fire? Then you can just go here and use this same animation right here and go click custom duplication. It will ask you what you want to put green underscore, and it will generate the same structure of your fire and rename it as green fire. So now you can draw green over this flame without having to like redraw everything over again. You can have this, reference and just draw over it. So that makes, if you're drawing things with the same structure, it'll make your life a lot easier. So the second tool I made is create layer group right here. And what it does is it basically makes it so that you don't have to right click, create new layer group, make the new layer group, then add the layers into it by clicking right click. So here's my layer group, right click, new layer, AD1, and then moving that layer into the layer group. Nah, we don't want to do that here. If we know how long our animation is going to be and what our animation is, we just want to make the animation immediately, so like the layers. So what you can do is you go to layer, create layer group, and input the amount of frames you need, the size of the layers, what the layer should be called. So this say red fire, and then we'll call this layer group red fire. And if you see here, it'll generate red fire with integers on the right of 1 to 15 in a layer group called red fire. So that just makes creating layer groups much faster. So the next tool I made is the onion skin effect, and it's basically a recreation of the onion skin in other animation programs in Gimp. So what happens here is that I already have an example here, but if we delete this, so for example, if this was our 10th frame and we wanted our 11th frame, and onion skin is very useful in the fact that you can see what the last frame is in the past. So if we go here and click onion skin, it'll generate the old layer gets sent to opacity 20. You can change this in Notepad++. But then you get a new layer with the next frame number, which is 11, and you can just draw over it. Let's see, if the flame just expands or something, and then we can just go do it again, and then just keep drawing. And you can see I can see the past frame before. And what's useful here is you might want to put a shortcut. So the shortcut can be if you go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and it'll pull up a window. You can search up onion skin and you can set it to whatever shortcut you want. And just to make sure, in shortcuts you would want to put Control Shift in order to access the shortcut from any window. Normally if you just did some other keyboard method like W or something, you would have to click into the layers panel and then press W and then it will generate it. But if you just do Control Shift X is what I have, you can just do it immediately like this. And finally, my last script just sets the visibility and opacity of all layers at once. And what happens here is you can go over here and see how all my layers are not visible. Well, you just go here, set visible, and set it to true with the checkbox, and then click OK. Then you have all the things visible, and that looks like a gigantic mess. But that you can normally do that with Control Shift click, and then you can just click the toggle button, and it'll do it as well. But if you have like a lot of frames, like right here, and you just want to set everything at once, you can just go to Layer, Set Visible, and just have it all visible. And the next thing is, if you remember from opacity, if you use opacity, it kind of changes the opacity of everything. So if I turn everything to off, 0, everything disappears, and then it'll turn it back to on, 100. It'll make everything appear again. So this is for like your onion skin. If you onion skin every frame, you don't want to go in and set the opacity back to 100 for everything, as opacity affects exportation. So you just, here's a function that allows you to just set everything back to 100, and then when you export it, it'll properly export. A real neat tool that I use a lot is Export plugin by Kaleem19. I don't know the real name, but they made this plugin that exports all your layer groups and layers in a format which is going to be used by my executable that you'll see later. And basically it just exports all your Gimp layer groups as folders, and the layers of that folder or of that group will be in the folder. And that's really useful for my next executable. So I also made an executable which takes your animation, your layers, and creates an animation out of them. So what you need to do is you need to place all the DLLs and the executable in the same folder as all your layers, and it should look like this. Well, there's an example in the downloads folder. If you look here, I have my executable, my DLLs, and I have my testing animation that I made. So all these things must be in the same folder, and then you have your animation as well inside that folder. So if we run it, it'll prompt you for if there is a parent folder, and if you look back, there is no parent folder. There's only one folder, and it goes immediately into the animation. Parent folder would be if there was another folder called parent, and that folder was in this folder, then that would be a parent folder, and then this would be your animation. But fortunately we don't have to work with that right now, so we just move that back out here, delete this. And basically what happens is it's going to ask you for information about your animation. So if we go back to the console window, and is there a greater parent folder? 2 is for no. The frames per second will say 30 frames per second. How many layers are there? There is 1 because it's a single animation. So please enter the following information from the frontmost layer to the backmost layer. That folder name is called test slime. The image file name is move underscore. How many frames on the layer is 11. If you can see here, it loaded everything properly. If there's an error here, you can just retry. So just make sure that everything is loaded here properly. The animation size is 64 by 64. The amount of frames is 11 frames. So now you see here, this is my animation. So this is the slime moving around. It's like jumping up and down. You can see it here, and you can choose to export it as a sprite sheet or as individual images. Here we'll choose to export it as a sprite sheet by following the information. So if you click S while clicking in the window, so you have to be in the window for this. So I'm in the window, and if I click S right now, it will say we'll stop the animation will stop playing. We'll come here, it'll ask us for a file name, we'll call this slime, and then the column amount for a sprite sheet will say, I don't know, 5. So if we can take a look here, this is what my program produced. It's a sprite sheet with 5 columns and every frame of the animation. So this, if you're making a game or something, this is what you would use, and you'd have a grid go by every the size. But anyways, so you can export this as a sprite sheet however you want, and this is the result. And so if we go back to the program exited itself, so it's not there anymore, and we can see in our folder is our picture of slime right there. And that's it. So in closing, I just made a bunch of scripts for animating on Gimp, and I made a program that plays your animation at whatever frame rate you want and allows you to export it as individual images or a sprite sheet. And there's a lot more information in the README if you want to do some other things, and I'll post some resources on how to use Scheme to make your own scripts in the description. Thank you. That's all for now, and stay safe in these trying times of COVID. Make sure to don't get yourself hurt. Goodbye, peoples.